Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command thee, O Spirit. Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command.
In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Welcome to the Abracast. I'm your host. You know who I am, John Towers. Tonight we're going to be talking about and reading Liber 5 Vel Reguli. If you go to Abracast.com and you go to the feature topic link, the Thelema section, I tried to stay on track pretty much as close as I could. There are some deviations. I fucked some shit up for sure, but the last big Thelema chunk that we did was Liber ABA Liber 4, whatever you want to call it. So the next in line would be Liber 5 Vel Reguli. And this is also kind of going hand in hand with the last ceremonial magic episode we did, where we were talking about the preparation for the ritual of Abermelin the Mage, where we started the whole thing kind of talking about initiation, what our society is missing, the search for initiation or rites of passage, other than, getting your fucking driver's license. So when I went back and I was prepping for this and I was rereading Liber 5, I was like, oh, well, this could act as initiatory. This could, if it's, repetitive enough, like if you put this like on a daily thing or something. And then while I was doing a little bit of additional research, I found thelemic-gnosticism.blogspot.com, where they really do a good job breaking this down. If you're interested in this, would suggest going to it, and checking it out. I'm not reading this whole thing. It's extensive, but there are bits and pieces that I'm going to get just to put a finer point on my initiatory ritual sort of idea. Why this is the right time to circle back to pick up Liber 5. Liber Reguli is a standard Thelemic ritual of invocation. The shape of the letter V gives the impression of the sign of Apophis and Typhon, the destroyer. From this point of view, the grade 5 equals 6 grade signs of the AA. Apophis is the transition between Osiris slain and Osiris risen, thereby representing the Neophish consciousness combining with the Nashama consciousness. 5 is also the number of Gabora. It's this Sephiroth Gabora on the tree of life, Mars, and Horus. It is also the letter Hey, the window The word Reguli refers to the 28th degree in the constellation Leo, the heart of the lion, and the star Regulus. Therefore, it seems that we have this ritual as a window into the royal star of the new Aeon. Essentially, we allow the illumination of the star into our lives, the etheric astral realm to the earth plane. Regulus is further one of the principal watcher stars from which the Hebrews derived their archangels. So we're going to skip down here. Let me find my place. I'm going to briefly hit this paragraph. The individual in relation to each of its three selves further connect the idea of three. You're going to see this three come up in this ritual a lot. Each point is illustrated in relation to the two others that define it. So as we're going through this and we're seeing the three and this idea of the individual being in relation to its three selves, I want us to think about the three magicians of the Thoth deck. And then further down here in this paragraph, the magician is identifying with the tree of life, meaning he or she is asserting that one is the microscopic universe and the macroscopic universe is identical to oneself. This is another symbol of the great work and should be studied in conjunction with the hexagram rituals of Thelema, which we might, depending on our time, we might talk about that. We've talked about it in the past. I'm actually getting a lot of deja vu when I'm reading this. I think we might have done this for a bonus episode or something at one point in time, but I couldn't find it in the featured topic. So the hexagram rituals of Thelema, the magical formulae are repeated at this point in the right one, more establishing the thelemic current within the magician and also outside of the magician into the sphere of the magical circle. These words of power, Lashtal, Thelema, Phaiof, Agape, and Amgun. It gets into a bunch of gematria stuff here that we're going to kind of gloss over. And then there's one bit here towards the end that I wanted to get into. Again, just putting a finer point on the idea of an initiation ritual. As complex as Liber 5 Vel Reguli might seem, its successful performance is marked rather easily in the aspirant's personal experience. A definite exaltation is noted along with the profound realization of the five. Prolonged experimentation with this ritual should and will bring into the consciousness an energy synchronic with that of the magic of Thelema, as the Aeon marks the growth of the child into maturity. We, as magicians, Thelemites, and aspirants, use the power of the three, the six, and the nine by way of the five to complete fulfillment of our wills and attain that which is inevitable, the ascending of our being from the lowest to the highest. Amen. And then they use the common Thelemite sign off. Love is the law. Love under will. All right, so where's my book here? Well, first of all, let's not get too crazy. There are other things we're doing here. I have my vessel of the art present. Within my vessel of the art is mixed the elixir, is mixed the formulae for mass distraction. Within my vessel of the art is mixed my jinn jihad. So let us lubricate. Amen. that was so good. I want to do it again. Liber 5 Vel Reguli. Being the ritual of the mark of the beast, an incantation proper to invoke the energies of the Aeon of Horus, adapted for daily use of the magician of whatever grade. The first gesture, the oath of enchantment, which is called the 11-fold seal. The Adam adversion towards Aeon. Let the magician, robed and armed as he may deem to be fit, turn his face towards Bolskine, that is the house of the beast, 666. So Bolskine is the house on Loch Ness where he reportedly was opening portals and letting UFOs into the world. Okay, so it's like Mecca here. It's like you have to face Bolskine, which is in Scotland. And let him strike the battery. 1, 3, 3, 3, 1. So you're striking the battery 1 time, 3 times, 3 times, 3 times, 1 time. And let him put the thumb of his right hand between the index and medius and make the gesture hereafter following. The vertical component, these are the hand signs of Thelema. Think about like in the classic, not in the movie, they barely do it in the movies, I guess. Maybe they do it in the movies. But Doctor Strange does all these Murdura hand gestures, like the Spider-Man thing. That's Steve Ditko. That's why Spider-Man does that too. The devil horn sign. I have a whole thing about that. I don't know if I ever talked about it. The vertical component of the enchantment. Let him describe a circle around his head, crying Nuit, Egyptian goddess. Let him draw the thumb vertically towards and touch the Muladhara chakra, crying Hadit. The Muladhara chakra is like your butthole chakra. It's always about the buttholes with this guy. Let him retract. They call it the root chakra. Let him, retracing the line, touch the center of his breast and cry Rahur Kuit, the horizontal component of the enchantment. Let him touch the center of his forehead, his mouth, and his larynx, crying Iawaz. And let him draw his thumb from his right to his left across his face at the level of the nostrils. And let him touch the center of his breast and the solar plexus, crying Therion. And let him draw his thumb from his left to his right across his breast at the level of the sternum, and let him touch the Savatasna and the Muladhara chakra, crying Babylon. That chakra is nowadays we call it the sacral chakra, or the spleen chakra. Let him draw his thumb from his right to his left across his abdomen at the level of the hips. Thus shall he formulate the sigil of the grand Hierophant, but dependent from the circle. The asseveration of the spells. Let the magician clasp his hands upon his wand, his fingers and thumbs interlaced, crying, I don't speak Greek, but it looks like Lashatal, Oamea, Iowa, and Iamin. Thus shall be declared the words of power, whereby the energies of the Aeon of Horus work his will in the world. And proclamations of the accomplishment. Let the magician strike the battery 3 times, 5 times, 3 times, crying Abrahadabra. The second gesture, the enchantment. Let the magician, still facing Bolskine, Skein, advance to the circumference of his circle, and let in turn himself towards the left, and pace with the stealth and swiftness of a tiger in the precinct of his circle, until he complete one revolution thereof. Let him give the sign of Horus, or the Enterer, as he passeth, so to the project the force that radiateth from Bolskine before him. So one of these days, I'm gonna do something to sort out and figure out all these god form positions for Thelema, but the sign of the Enterer is okay. Let's see. It's you step forward with your left foot, and both arms are kind of forward in front of you. The hands are fists with the index finger extended out, kind of pointing forward. That is the sign of the Enterer. As he passeth, so to project the force that radiateth from Bolskine before him. Let him pace his path until he comes to the north. There let him halt and turn his face to the north. Let him trace with his wand the Averse Pentagram, proper to evoke air, Aquarius. So the adverse evoking... So, Jesus. So when he's doing all this wand ritual, pentagram ritual stuff, it's the many different ways that it takes to draw a pentagram in the air with the tip of your wand. You could do it evoking or banishing. In this case, he's talking about evoking, and he's talking about evoking the sign of air. So if you kind of think of the pentagram, geez, I can't not believe I'm about to do this, and you think of it as Patrick the starfish, it would start at Patrick's right hand and move to his left hand, and then you take off from there. So that's the starting position for evoking air. So that's the standard pentagram ritual for invoking. For banishing, it is kind of opposite, right? So for air, you would start at Patrick Star's right hand and move left. But for Liber 5Vel Reguli, since it's the mark of the beast, or whatever, the pentagrams themselves are inverted, so it'd be like Patrick Star standing on his head. And for Liber 5, it would be, hello dyslexia, for Liber 5, if you're thinking of Patrick Star standing on his head, you would start with his left hand right, and then go up to his left foot, down to his head, down to his right foot, and complete. Okay, so if you go on my Instagram, I stole a pentagram diagram thing a while back, so you could just scroll back, or I mean, you guys are savvy. You could just Google search it, or go duck it, or whatever. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry if I messed any of that up. I'm recovering dyslexic. All right, so he's evoking air. Let him bring into the wand to the center of the pentagram and call upon Nuit, and let him make the sign called Puella, standing with his feet together, head bowed, his left hand shielding the Muldhara chakra butthole, and his right hand shielding his breast, the attitude of the Venus de Medici. Let him turn again to the left and pursue his path as before, projecting the force of Bolskine as he passeth. Let him halt when he next cometh of the south and face forward. Let him trace the Averse Pentagram that evoketh fire. So that would be Patrick's left foot to the tip of his head, and so forth. And let him point the wand in the center of the pentagram and cry, "Had it." And let him give the sign of Pur, standing with his feet together and his head erect, and let his right hand, thumb extended at right angles to the fingers, be raised, the forearm vertical at a right angle, and the upper arm, which is horizontally extended in the line joining the shoulders. Let his left hand and thumb extended forward, and his fingers clenched rest at the junction of his thighs. These attitudes of the gods, Mentu, Kem, etc. Let him proceed as before. Then in the east, let him make the Averse Pentagram that evoketh Earth or Taurus. And that would be starting at Patrick's head. Remember, he's standing upside down, to his right foot, then to his left hand, etc. And let him point his wand to the center of the pentagram and call out Therion. And let him give the sign called Ver. The feet being together, the hands with clenched fingers and thumbs thrust out forward are held to the temples. The head is bowed and pushed out as if to symbolize the budding of a horned beast. The attitude of Pan and Bacchus, the front. So this is the famous picture of Crowley with his hat, that funny hat that he wears, and he's got his hands to both sides. That's the position of Ver. That's what they're talking about. Proceeding as before, let him make in the west the Averse Pentagram, whereby water is invoked. And that would be Patrick standing on his head, right hand to left hand, pointing the wand to the center of the pentagram. Let him call upon Babylon, and let him give the sign of Mulier. The feet are widely separated and the arms raised to suggest a crescent. This is like the YMCA. This is like the C. The head is thrown back, the attitude of Baphomet, Isis, and welcome the microcosm of Vitruvius. And let him, this is my favorite part, and let him break into dance, tracing the centripetal spiral widdershins, enriched by revolutions upon his axis as he passeth the quarter until he comes to the center of the circle. And let him halt, facing Bolskine. Let him raise the wand and trace the mark of the beast and cry Iowaz. So I'm trying to think about the best way to explain the mark of the beast. It's not very beast-like. It's like, think of, you know what foreshortening is? It's like if you're doing art and you're like drawing someone punching towards the view of like someone punching towards the camera, how perspective dictates that the fist will be larger and you'll taper back, but it's not just a fist and then the guy's body. Like the elbow is arced out, could be arced out slightly. You get like part of the shoulder, and that's called foreshortening. And the mark of the beast is kind of like what I would think. It's like if you were looking at a 3D model representation head on of like a graffiti dick and balls. That's kind of what the mark of the beast here looks like to me, is like if you're looking at a cartoon penis like straight on, like it's about to go down, you know what I mean? Let him trace the evoking hexagram of the beast. The hexagram of the beast is the classic unicursal hexagram of Thelema. It's the sixth pentagram. It's a pentagram. But it's skewed. It doesn't look like the pentagrams that we're used to because, it's just the pentagram of the beast, bro. Unicursal pentagram, they call it. All right, after he draws the pentagram of the beast, let him lower the wand, striking the earth therewith. Let him give the sign of Master Triumphans, which is the feet are together. The left arm is curved as if to support a child. The thumb and index finger of the right hand pinched the nipple of the left breast, as it is offering it to the child, and let him utter the word of Oemia. Perform the spiral dance, moving, desoil and whirling Witter's chins. Each time passing the west, extend the wand to the quarter in the question and bow. Before me, the powers of La. Before me, the powers of Al. On my right hand, the powers of La. On my left hand, the powers of Al. Before me, the powers of leaping in the air. Beneath me, the powers of, it's S, capital S, lowercase h, space, uppercase T. I mean, within me, the powers, the attitude of Peneth, erect the feet together and the hands clasp upon the vertical wand. About me, the flames of my father's face, the star of force and fire, and in the column stands his six-rayed splendor. The final gesture, this is identical to the first gesture. Here followeth an impression of the ideas implied in this paean. I think that's just another word for song or story. I am also a star in space, a unique, self-existent and individual essence, incorruptible. I am one soul. I am identical with all and none. I am in all and all in me. I am apart from all, the Lord of all and one with all. I am a God. I am very God of very God. I go upon my way to work my will. I have made matter and motion for my mirror. I have decreed from my delight that nothingness should figure itself as twain, and I might dream a dance of names and nature, and enjoy the substance of simplicity by watching the wanderings of my shadow. I am not that which is not. I know not that which knows not. I love not that which loves not, for I am love. Whereby division dies in light, I am knowledgeable, whereby all parts plunged in the whole perish and pass it into perfections, and I am that I am. He's just like Popeye, and being wherein, we're all just like Popeye, aren't we? The being wherein being is lost in nothing, nor deigns to be but its will, to unfold its nature, its need, to express its perfection, its all possibilities, each phase a partial phantasm, and yet inevitable and absolute. I am omniscient, for naught exists for me unless I know it. I am omnipotent, for naught occurs save by necessary my soul's expression through my will to be, to do, to suffer the symbols of itself. I am omnipresent, for naught exists where I am not, who fashioned space as a condition of my consciousness of myself. I am at the center of all, and my circumference, the frame of mine own fancy. I am the all, for all that exists for me is a necessary expression in thought of some tendency of my nature. And all thoughts are only the letters of my name. I am the one, for all that I am is not absolute. All and all, my all is mine and not another's, mine to conceive of others like myself in essence and in truth, yet unlike in expressions of illusion. I am the none, for all that I am is an imperfect image of the perfect. The partial phantom must perish in the clasp of its counterpart. Each form fulfills itself by finding its equated opposite and satisfying the need to be absolute by attaining the attainment of annihilation. The word lashtal includes all this. All, not, al, to, la, justice, the catesis filled by the phallus, not and to, because the plus and the minus have united in love under will. A is the full, not in thought. Percival, word, Harpocrates, the action, Bacchus. He is boundless air, the wandering ghost with possibilities. He is the knot that the two have made by love under will. Law is the representation of ecstasy, of knew-it and had-it, conjoined, lost in love and making themselves naught thereby, their children begotten and conceived, but is in phase of naught also. As yet La is thus universe in that phase with its potentialities of manifestation. Owl is the contrary. Although it is essentially identical with La, shows the full manifested through the equilibrium of consistencies. The weight is still nothing, but is expressed, as it were, two equal weights in opposite scales. This is his adjustment card, I think, in the Thoth deck. The indicator still points to 0. Is equally 31 with Law in all, and expressed in the secret nature which operates the magic of the transmutations. Is the formula of this particular aeon. Another aeon might have another way of saying 31. Sh is fire, is T is force. Conjoined, they express Ra Hur Kuit, the angel represented in Stell 666, showing the gods of the aeons, while strength is pictured of Babylon and the beast and the earthly emissaries of those gods. So the Stell of 666, the Stell of Revelation, is a thing that he found in the, I think, Cairo Museum. It's like a little plate, like a little block of hieroglyphics with this thing that let him crack the code of Thelema, sort of. Like I said, it's called the Stella of Revelation. I actually have a t-shirt of it. I don't know if it's activated. If you're interested, go check out the website, Storefront. I did put it on a t-shirt at one point in time. Maybe I can find it and put it up if it's not there. But yeah, if you read enough Corwley, you'll hear all about this Stell of Revelation. Is the dynamic equivalent of law in all. Shows the word of the law, the triple as 93, thrice 31. T shows the formula of magic declared in the world. The lion, the serpent, the sun, courage, and sexual love, all indicated by the card. In La, the note that Saturn, or Satan, is exalted in the house of Venus, or Estere, and it is an airy sign. Thus L, the father, mother, two and naught, the Spirit or the Holy Ghost. And their love is also not, for AHBH13, which is ACHD, unity, one, Aleph, who is the fool, who is not but none, the less is an individual one, and such is not another, yet unconscious of himself until his oneness expresses itself as a duality. Any impression or idea is unknowable in itself. It can mean nothing until brought into relation with other things. The first step is to distinguish one thought from another. This is the condition of recognizing it. To define it, we must perceive its orientation to all our other ideas. The extent of our knowledge of any one thing varies, therefore, with the number of ideas with which we can compare it. Every new fact is not is not only adds itself to our universe, but increases the value of what we already possess. The all in the all this, the or God arranges the countenance for behold countenance. By establishing itself as an equilibrium, A, the one not conceived as L, the two not. This L is the son, daughter, Horus, Harpocrates, just as the other L was the father, mother, Set, Isis. Here, then, is tetragrammaton once more. When expressed in identical equations in which every term is perfect in itself as a mode of naught. Supplies the last element, making the word of either 5 or 6 letters, according to as we regard in 1 letter or 2. Thus, the word affirms the great work accomplished. 5 degrees equals 6 squared. Is moreover a necessary revolution of the apparent opposition of law and all. For one can hardly pass to the other without the catalytic action of the third identical expression, whose function should be to transmute them. Such a term must be in itself a node of naught, and nature can encroach the perfections of not being, la, or being, all. It must purely nothing matter so as to create a matter in motion, which is the functioning of something. Thus, is motion in its double phase, an inertia composed of 2 opposite currents, and each current is also thus polarized. Is heaven and earth to male and female. Is spirit and matter. One is the word of liberty and love, flashing its light to restore life to earth, and the other is the act by which life claims that love is light and liberty. And thus are 2 in 1, the divine letter of silence and speech, whose symbol is the sun in the arms of the moon. The sh and t are unlike formulae for force and action opposed to entities. They are not states of existence, but modes of motion. They are not verbs, not nouns. Sh is the Holy Spirit as a tongue of fire manifest in the triplicity. It is the child of Set, Isis, and their logos, or word uttered by their angel. The card is XX. The 20, the value of Yod, the angel, or the herald, expressed in full as IVD. Sh is spiritual congress of heaven and earth. It's the place where the mundane and the divine connect. But the T is the Holy Spirit in the action of the roaring lion and the old serpent instead of an angel of light. The twins of Set and Isis, harlot and beast, are busy with their sodometic and incestuous lust, which is the traditional formula for producing demigods. In the case of Mary and the dove, Leda and the swan, etc., the card is XI, the number of magic, AVD, Aleph, the fool, impregnating the woman according to the word of Yod, the angel of the Lord. His sister has seduced her brother beast, shaming the son with their sin. She has mastered the lion and enchanted the serpent. Nature is outraged by magic. Man is bestialized and woman is defiled. The conjunction produces a monster, and it affirms regression of types. Instead of a man-god conceived of the spirit of God by a virgin in innocence, we are asked to abhor the bastard of a whore and a brute, begotten in a shameful sin and born in the most blasphemous bliss. This is the fact. So, I just, real quick, a long time ago we did a series of episodes about sex magic, and we were talking about clipothic entities. Those are entities that are born out of situations where there can be no procreation. Let's put it that way. When clipothic entities are created when these sorts of sex acts are completed. For some reason, that's just jumping out in my head. The fact of the formula of our magic, we insist that all acts must be equal. That existence asserts the right to exist. You can find that on the feature topic link, by the way. Now, unless evil is a mere term expressing some relation of haphazard hostility between forces equally self-justified, the universe is inexplicable and impossible. As uncompensated action, that the orgies of Bacchus and Pan are no less sacramental than the masses of Jesus. The scars of syphilis are sacred and worthy of honor, as much as the wounds of the martyrs of Mary. It should be unnecessary to insist that the above ideas apply only to the absolute. Toothache is still painful, deceit, degrading to a man relatively to his situation in the world of illusion. He does his will by avoiding them. But the existence of evil is fractal to philosophy, so long as it is supposed to be independent conditions to accustom the mind to make no difference between any two ideas as such is to emancipate it from the thraldom of terror. We affirm to our altars our faith in ourselves and our wills, our love of all aspects of absolute all. And we make the spirit shin combined with the flesh teth in a single letter, whose value is 31, even as those of law, the not and all, the all, to complete their not being and being, with its becoming to meditate between identical extremes as their mean. Their secret that surrenders and seals them. It declares that all somethings are equally shadow of nothing, and that justify nothing in its futility, folly, of pretending that something is stable by making us aware that a method of magic through the practice of which we may partake. In the pleasures of the process, the magician should devise for himself a definite technique for destroying evil. The essence of such practice will consist in the training the mind and the body to confront things which case fear, pain, and disgust, shame, and the like. And we must learn to endure them, then to become indifferent to them, and then to become indifferent to them again, then to analyze them and until they give pleasure and instruction, and finally to appreciate them for their own sake as an aspect of truth. When this has been done, he should abandon them. They are really harmful in relation to health and comfort. Also, our selection of evils is limited to those that cannot damage us irreparably. One ought to practice smelling, I don't know what this is, asafoetida until one likes it, but not arsine or hydrocyanic acid. Again, one might have a liaison with an ugly old woman until one beheld and loved the star which she is. It would be too dangerous to overcome the distance for dishonesty by forcing oneself to pick pockets. Acts which are essentially dishonorable must not be done. They should be justified only by calm contemplation of their correctness in abstract cases. Love is a virtue. It grows strong and pure and less selfish by applying it to what it loathes. But theft is a vice involving the slave idea that one neighbor is superior to oneself, and it is admirable for its power to develop certain moral and mental qualities in primitive types to prevent the atrophy of such faculties of our own vigilance, and for interest which it adds to the tragedy of man. Crime, folly, sickness, and all such phenomenon must be contemplated with the complete freedom from fear, aversion, or shame. Otherwise, we shall fail to see accurately and interpret intelligently, in which case we shall be unable to outwit and outfight them. Anatomists and physiologists grapple in the dark with death, have won hygiene, surgery, prophylaxis, and the rest for mankind. Anthropologists, archaeologists, physicists, and other men of science, risking thumbscrews, stakes, infamy, and ostracism, have torn the spider snare of superstition to shreds and broken it in pieces. The monstrous idol of morality, the murderous Moloch, which has made mankind its meat throughout history. Each fragment of the corpulite manifest an image of some brute lust, some torpid dullness, some ignorant instinct, or some furtive fear shapen in its own savage mind. Man is indeed not wholly freed even now. He is trampled under the hooves of stampeding mules that the nightmare bore to his wild ass. His creative forces that had not mastered the sterile ghosts that he called gods. The mystery cow men, still they fear, they flinch, they dare not face the phantoms. Still, too, the fallen fatigue, which seems awful. It is frightful to them that there is no longer an idol to adore with anthems and to appease with the flesh of their firstborn. Each scrambles in the bloody mire of the floor to snatch some scrap for a relic that he may bow down and serve it. So even today, a mass of maggots swarm, heaving over the carrion earth. A brotherhood bound by blind greed for rottenness. Science still hesitates to raise the temple of Rimmon, though every year finds more of her son's impatient Naman's prudence. The privy council of the kingdom of Mansul sits in permanent secret session. It dares not declare what must follow its deed in shattering the monarch morality into scraps of crumbling conglomerate of climatic, tribal, and person prejudices, corrupt yet more by the action of the crafty ambition, insane impulse, ignorant arrogance, superstitious hysteria, fear fashioning falsehoods on the stone that it be set in the grave of truth, whom has murdered and buried in the black earth of oblivion. Moral philosophy, psychology, sociology, anthropology, mental pathology, physiology, and many other of the children of wisdom, of whom she justified, well known that the laws of ethics are chaos of confused conventions based at best on the customs convenient with certain conditions, more often on the craft of caprice. The biggest and most savage, heartless, cunning, and bloodthirsty brutes of the pack, to secure their power or pander to their pleasure and cruelty. There is principle, even a false one, to give coherence to the clamor of ethical propositions. Yet the very men that have smashed Moloch and strewn the earth with shapeless rubble grow pale when they so much as whisper among themselves, while Moloch ruled, all men were bound by one law, and by the oracles of them that knowing the fraud, feared not, but were his priests and his wardens of his mystery. What now? How can any of us, though wise and strong, as never was known, prevail on men to act in concert, now that each prey in his own chip of God, and yet knows every other chip to be worthless? Ort, dream, dust, ape, dung, tradition, bone, or not, what not else. So science begins to see that the initiates were maybe not merely silly and selfish, and they're making the rules of silence, the protecting of the philosophy from the profane, yet still she hopes that the mischief may not prove mortal, and begs that things may go much as usual until the secret session decides on some plan of action. It has always been fatal when somebody finds out too much too suddenly. If John Huss had cackled more like a hen, he might have survived Michaelimas, and may be been esteemed for his eggs. The last 50 years have laid the axe of analysis to the root of every axiom, and they are triflers who contend themselves with the lopping and blossoming twigs of our beliefs, to who content themselves with lopping and for the boughs of intellectual instruments. We can no longer assert any single proposition unless we guard ourselves by enumerating countless conditions which must be assumed. This digression has outstayed its welcome. It's only invited by wisdom, that it might warn rashness of the dangers and encompass the sincerity, energy, intelligence when they happen not to contribute to the fitness in their environment. The magician must be wary in his use of powers. He must may every act not only accord with his will, but with the properties of his position at all times. It might be my will to reach the foot of a cliff, but the easiest way, also the speediest way, most direct, least obstructed way of minimum effort would be simply jump. I should have destroyed my will in the act of fulfilling it, or what I mistook for it, for the true will has no goal, its nature being to go. Similarly, a parabola is bound by one law which fixes its relations with two straight lines at every point. Yet it has no end short of affinity. It continually changes its direction. The initiate who is aware who he is can always check this conduct by referencing the determinants of his curve, calculate his past, his future, his bearings, and his proper course. At any assigned moment, he can even comprehend himself as a simple idea. He may attain the measure fellow parabolas, ellipses that crosses his path, hyperbolas that span the space with their twin wings. Perhaps he may come at long last, leaping beyond the limits of his own law to conceive it sublimely stupendous, outrageous to reason. The cone, utterly indestructible to him, is yet well aware that he exists in his nature thereof, that he is necessary thereto, that he is ordered thereby, and therefrom he is sprung from the loins of so fearful a father. His own infinity becomes zero in relation to that of the least fragment of the solid. He hardly exists at all. Trillions multiplied by trillions of such as he could not cross the frontier even of breath. The idea which he came to guess at only because he felt himself bound by some mysterious power, yet breath is equally nothing in presence of the cone. His first conception must individually be frantic spasm, formless, insane, not to be classed as an articulate thought. Yet, if he develops the faculties of his mind, the more he knows of it, the more he sees that its nature is identical with his own. However, comparison with the possible. The true will is thus both determined by its equations and free, because those equations are simple. Its own name spelt out fully. His sense of being under bondage comes from the inability to read it. His sense that evil exists to thwart him arises when he begins to learn to read, reads wrong, the obstinate that his error is an improvement. We know one thing only: absolute existence, absolute motion, absolute direction, absolute simultaneity, the absolute truth. All such ideas, they have not and never can have any real meaning. If a man in delirium tremens fell into the Hudson River, he might remember the proverb and clutch at an imaginary straw. Words such as truth are like that straw. Confusion of thoughts is concealed, and its impotence denied by the invention. The paragraph opened with, "We know, yet question we, make haste to deny the possibility of possessing or even defining knowledge." We could be more certain to parabola philosopher that he could approach in two ways and two ways only. It would be indeed little less than that whole body of his knowledge implied by the theory of his definition of himself and confirmed by every single existence. He could receive impressions only B meeting A or being caught up by B. Yet he would be wrong in an infinite number of ways. There are therefore left through zero possibilities, that at any moment a man may find himself totally transformed, and it may be our present dazzled bewilderment is due to our recognition of the existence of new dimensions of thought, which seem so inscrutably infinite and absurd and immoral, etc., because we have not studied it long enough to appreciate that its laws are identical with our own, though existed new conceptions. The discovery of radioactivity created a momentary chaos in chemistry and physics, but it soon led to a fuller interpretation of old ideas. It dispersed many difficulties, harmonized many discords, and yea, more. It showed the substance of the universe as a simplicity of light and of life, manners to compose atoms themselves capable of deeper self-realization through fresh complexities, the organizations, each with its own peculiar power and pleasures, each pursuing its path through the world where all things are possible. It revealed the omnipresence of Hadot, identical with himself, yet fulfilling himself by dividing his interplay with Nuit into episodes, each from the energy isolated with each aspect of her receptivity, delight developing delight, continuous from the complex to complex. It was the voice of nature awakening in the dawn of the Aeon. As Aiwass uttered the words of the law of Thelema, so also shall he who evoketh often behold the formless fire with trembling and bewilderment. But if he prolong his meditation, he shall resolve it in coherent and intangible symbols, and he shall hear the articulate utterance of that fire, interpret the thunder thereof, his still small voice in his heart, and the fire shall reveal it to his eyes in his own image, in his own true glory, and he shall speak in his ears the mystery that is his own right nature. This then, in the virtue of the magic of Beast 666 and the canon of its proper usage to destroy the tendency to discriminate between any two things in theory and in practice, to pierce the veils of every sanctuary, pressing forward to embrace every image, for there is nothing that is not very Isis. The inmost is one with the inmost, yet the form of the one is not the form of the other. Intimacy exacts fitness. He therefore, who liveth by air, let him not bold to breathe water, but mastery cometh by measure. To him who with labor, courage, and caution giveth the life to understand that all doth encompass him, to prevail against it shall be increased. The word of sin is restriction. Seek therefore righteousness, inquiring to inequity, and to fortify thyself to overcome it.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed the show. Please send an email or find us on social media and let us know what you think about the show. We would appreciate it if you would give us a 5-star rate and review wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can find Stigmata Studios, graphic, novels, and comic books. Take control of your destiny. Understand your past. Put your present in context and know your future with a twist. Check out the Abracast Tarot card deck. Your body is your temple. So let's make sure you got a badass t-shirt on it. Variety of cool occult themed t-shirts. And other merch like stickers, wall art, mugs, and more. Welcome to the Red Archive. Get access to over 50 hours of archived episodes. More bonus audio. Additional exclusive content. All this for only $1 a month. Are you interested in the occult, history, conspiracy, and violence? Learn more at Abracast.com.